This is the Deliberate Talks Weekly Podcast, powered by the Pixelated Egg Digital Ventures. Tune in every week to learn something new about digital marketing and entrepreneurship. And now, over to the voice of your host, Dakshin Adyanthaya. Enjoy the show.
Hitting the milestone of completing a year, you have tuned in to the first anniversary episode of the Deliberate Talks podcast. And I want to start this episode by thanking you all for tuning in frequently and supporting the podcast. Well, then moving forward, here is to more milestones, and here is to our conversation with Chris Krimitsos and the fascinating world of cryptocurrencies. But before that, here are some interesting facts about it. Did you know the number of registered blockchain wallets in the first quarter of 2020 was 47.14 million? Finder highlights that there are 28,866 social media posts on Bitcoin posted online daily. That's 1,203 posts made almost every hour, and that's almost 20 posts every minute. Wow. Interestingly, the first Bitcoin real-life purchase was for 2 pizzas, and it cost 10,000 Bitcoins. Highlights Investopedia. And now to talk more about this, on today's show, we have a Guinness World Record holder for the largest attendance for virtual podcasting conference in 1 week. He's also a leading expert on podcasting and on-demand audio. He recently launched the Florida Blockchain and Bitcoin Summit. Here's introducing Chris Krimitsos. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the Deliberate Talks podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Dakshin. Thank you for having me on the show.
Super. It's great to finally be hosting you. We've been planning this since long. And Chris, from a podcaster to a community builder, to event organizer, to holding a world record, and to being an on-demand audio expert. In all this, how did blockchain technology and cryptocurrency come into your life?
So that's funny. One of the things I have a skill for is spotting the future trends and how they're going to shape up. And blockchain, basically being able to transact on an open ledger and smart contracts, that's what blockchain is. I believe it's going to empower creators in such a way that it will change the very face of how everything is being done. So as I've been watching it over the years, I got exposed to Bitcoin early on when it was just starting out. A friend of mine told me about it. He was explaining all this stuff. I didn't understand any of it, but I was excited about it because I knew it was something. I just recently did the first ever Florida Bitcoin and blockchain event because I believe over time, it's going to empower all our creators to own the majority of their creative content. And just it's going to be a much more cleaner ecosystem. Right now, it's not as clean because it's in the infancy, but as it develops, it's going to be a very clean ecosystem for people to support their creators and transact. As well as, it's going to lift a lot of people out of poverty because it's a much more honest system.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, just like you mentioned with respect to, the first time you were exposed to this whole concept, simplify this for people who really don't understand it.
So let's just take Bitcoin, for instance. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. So we understand currency. It's a system. It's limited value. Yes, it runs on a computer equation, but let's just take it as an item, an asset. Mm-hmm. In order for Bitcoin to have any value, you must have a blockchain, a chain of events for me to transfer it or to transact it. And we could create what's called smart contracts on that chain. So for instance, Dakshin, I could create a contract with you that says, I would like to own your content for the US marketplace. You could, in that smart contract, say, okay, Chris could do that, but I get a royalty of 20% every time he makes money. Mm-hmm. And because it's all on the chain and we could all see it, the money, they call it a trustless ecosystem, but basically what it means is the system goes into place and then the money just gets deposited directly into your account. I'll give you an easier explanation. Mm-hmm. We're all familiar with airlines and hotels, and they have all these point systems where people could accumulate points. Imagine if the individual content creator could create their own point system and keep track of a point system. and you would use the blockchain to do that. It's much easier to do. Right now, it's very complicated to do for a small entity. But in the near future, everybody's going to be able to create their own point systems or create an equation that works for them to, incentivize people to work together.
Right. Absolutely. And how long has it been for you, in this whole process of learning and then eventually getting into this event and meeting like-minded people?
So I didn't know much about blockchain before I did the event. I knew the concepts. The reason why I do events is so I could learn. Don't ask me. That's a very painful way to learn because I have to also create the event. But I like getting involved with these individuals, meeting the people that are part of the ecosystem, and then learning firsthand from them. So we just launched the event last week. So I would say 6 weeks ago, I took it very seriously, and I've been studying it ever since.
Right. Tell me a bit more about the Florida blockchain and, the Bitcoin summit. How did that go, and what was the engagement like, and who were the people who attended?
So we set it up 5 weeks ago. We signed the contract with the hotel literally 5 weeks out before the conference. We were hoping to get 150 people to attend, which was an aggressive goal for an event that's never happened before, and you only have 5 weeks to promote it.
Mm-hmm.
We had over 271 registrants.
Wow.
It was amazing. The people that came were people that are technologists. So we had 3 pools of people. We had beginners like myself who wanted to learn more about this, knowing that it's a serious thing to educate themselves on. Then we had policymakers. So it was very curious, but a lot of our politicians from Washington, D.C. and the state were there because they're creating policy to allow this information to work fluidly for the technologists. And then we had developers that are literally developing the future. And what I learned is what makes Bitcoin, for instance, so powerful is it's decentralized. There's no governing body. The community governs it. It's really an amazing resource. And it's very hard to game it. It's very hard to manipulate it because the community takes care of itself. And then we learned about other cryptocurrencies. But I would say for anyone looking to get started, I would say Bitcoin is the gold standard. But the things that these people were creating on the blockchain, Dakshin, we also learned about NFTs. So, one guy had a resource where you could NFT, basically you could create a virtual image of your art and sell it. Right. So it was really interesting. And we learned about copyrights and infringements and what makes a good NFT. How do you transact that? I didn't know this, but the NBA, our basketball league, sells plays of our players, and they sell the NFTs, and they go for $9,000, $10,000, $20,000.
Wow. I'm going to dig more into the NFT topic, but before that, I would like to understand within the summit, like you mentioned, I liked how you differentiated it into 3 different audiences, the beginners, the stakeholders, and the advocates. Now, from a beginner's point of view, let's understand that in a little more detail. Where does a beginner start from? What's the easiest way to learn about blockchain and cryptocurrencies?
Honestly, for a beginner, the easiest thing I would say is open up a crypto wallet. So Coinbase is one of the most popular ones, but whatever is popular in your region of the world. But, these wallets are international. That's the cool thing. Like all these like Coinbase or CoinDesk, they're like everywhere already. Right. So open up a crypto wallet, and then whatever amount of money you have, I don't care if it's $1 or whatever, or one half a unit, start buying every week some Bitcoin or the crypto. I would recommend Bitcoin to start because it's, even though it fluctuates up and down over time, it will, I could almost guarantee it will go up in value because now El Salvador just announced that it's going to be their official currency. So other countries are going to jump on board very quickly here. So once you start investing, the reason why I know that sounds weird because blockchain is a little different than the actual currency, but once you're invested in it, you start researching more about what the different blockchains are. There is a lady, Anu Bardwaj, who created Shikonomy. She created an app for people in Pakistan, India, different places that don't have as much memory on their phones to download podcasts and get paid in crypto. So she's in the process of creating that right now. So that's something that exists on the blockchain. You have to have a blockchain to create that kind of stuff.
Right. Wow. It's like you mentioned, it's also very volatile in nature. How does one deal with this anxiety or the volatileness of cryptocurrency?
if you're buying Bitcoin, it's going to go up over time. A lot of the other cryptocurrencies, we're not sure where they're going to go because they haven't been really proven. I think Ethereum is another strong one, but we don't know yet because that's not as decentralized, but it still, has a huge market cap. What I would say to any individual, if you do your research, buy and hold for the long term, because if you're buying on the short term, you're either going to make a lot of money or lose a lot of money. It really depends. Most people lose a lot of money because greed takes place and they think it's going to keep going up. Bitcoin over time, I mean, when I started looking at it, I remember it was brought to my attention when it was $60 a coin, then it hit 200, then 500. And every time it would hit one of those milestones, it would go back half. So it would hit 500, go down back to 200. It hit 1,000, go back to 500. But last year was at 10,000. Now it's at 40,000 as we speak. It's fluctuating around 40. Last week it was at 30,000. But by the end of the year, my guesstimate is it's going to be close to $70,000 or $80,000. So over time, if you're buy and hold, you're going to make money.
Right. Then, according to you, what are tips for first-time crypto investors?
There's no guarantees in life, but I would say Bitcoin is almost inevitable as governments adopt it. So first time is open up a wallet. That's one. Decide how much money you could put weekly to buy and hold. That's two. If you want to play the crypto markets and make a lot of money, I would say whatever percentage of your money, let's say 10%, you're willing to risk and lose all of it, then put that in the more speculative currencies like, Dogecoin and all the things you hear about. But be prepared to lose all of it and be okay with that, right? If you make money on any of those, I would then take that money and buy more Bitcoin. As you could tell, I'm very bullish on Bitcoin. There's over 100 million people that are using it, and it's being transacted. And then have patience. This is not a get-rich-quick game. This is get-rich-quick. You could get rich quick over 5 years, but you can't expect it to happen yesterday.
Okay. And which, according to you, are cryptocurrencies which one should invest in? Of course, you mentioned about Bitcoins. And there are so many coins out there, which normally intimidates people a lot. So which is that one or couple of cryptocurrencies that one should invest on, keeping in mind the next couple of years?
So what I would recommend is look for the ones that solve real problems in the blockchain ecosystem. So there's one called Pocket, P-O-K-T. I don't own any of it right now, but it's one I would definitely look at. They're solving the processing problem for apps on the Ethereum database. So that's a real problem that's being solved, and that creates real value. So that to me is something great. And then you have people like Gary Vaynerchuk, who's creating his own coins and he's wrapping them with Ethereum, or you could wrap them with Bitcoin. So I don't know exactly how that works, but what I do know is it's backed by actual real cryptocurrencies, and people are creating what's called their tokens.
Right.
And those are very valuable. So I think, Dakshin, in the near future, even companies like Podvest might create a token that's based on our actual business model that you could invest in and buy a token. And as we succeed, you succeed. And I think you're going to see a lot of that. And those are the opportunities I would really look at because they're based on real revenue numbers.
All right.
So I think that's going to be the future. I don't think I think out of there's thousands of cryptocurrencies right now. I don't know if it's 8,000 or 10,000. It could be eventually be millions. You need to spot the ones that are solving real problems to real situations. And then if they're wrapped, meaning they're backed by Bitcoin or Ethereum, I would then, grade them as more positively if you're looking at investing, because there's also some hard assets behind it.
Right. And what about your opinion about meme currencies? Let's talk about the Dogecoin, for example. They're gaining immense popularity and they're equally worrisome because it's a meme cryptocurrency at the end of the day, right? Where do you think that's going?
We're living in a world that's, what is a meme? A meme is like Egyptian hieroglyphics. We're going back to the past in a good way. Like we're going back to more advancement. I know it sounds weird. People think like memes, we're dummying down. Actually, we're talking in symbols and funny things. So we're actually really progressing into this new future. What is my prediction? Like I said, I think that would go in, if you're going to have a portfolio of currencies, I would be heavily weighted on Bitcoin, then maybe some Ethereum, and then I would take whatever percentage you're willing to lose. If you're going to play that game, I would do what you just said. Find the memes that are gaining momentum and then riding that cryptocurrency, because it will give you a ride. The question is, are you able to let go and sell at a profit and be okay if it keeps going up? Because eventually it will go down, over time.
Right.
Because a lot of these meme currencies have no real value yet.
Mm-hmm. Right. But, just seeing the popularity of the Dogecoins, for example, right? It's not a long-term game, you feel? Is it like a quick, short-term game where you can play and move out? That's what you recommend?
I personally, because when I was younger, I would play with these things, and I know myself, I have an addictive personality, so I stay out of those because I would get addicted to making quick money.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just recommend whatever you're willing to lose. If you want to invest in those, do it, but just make sure you know that you're willing to lose it if it goes the other way. For Dogecoin, I think in the future it might have some uses. Developers are now getting in there because it has attention,
right.
But if you were to compare it to, let's say, Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're light years ahead of where Dogecoin is, and the developers are there. So I would, Bitcoin will probably 5x in the next 2 years. I mean, that's not a bad return. And my prediction, and let's see what happens. But from where it is now, next couple of years, I think Bitcoin will be 150, 200,000 a coin within 2 or 3 years. So as far as and Ethereum should actually 3x as well. Dogecoin, maybe it will, maybe it won't. That's just a riskier bet. So I wouldn't allocate the majority of my money there unless you want to go for a long shot and be okay with the downside of it if it goes the opposite.
Right. And now coming to the conversation of NFTs, what is an NFT? Who can invest in it? Who is it for? And what role does cryptocurrencies have to play in there?
Well, NFTs, all they are is digital copies of real things or art or, a digital copy of music, and you could own the rights to that NFT. There are some nuances. I would say art right now is the easiest to NFT because an artist makes the art. They probably own the art. Now you could buy a copy of it digitally via an NFT. And what it means is a non-fungible token.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? It just means you can't mess with it. Once it's created, you own it. So for instance, let's say an artist paints a beautiful painting. They could create 100 NFT copies, number them 1 through 100, and sell the actual NFT and say, hey, limited run, that's all they'll ever be. And now that person owns that piece and they could sell it into perpetuity. So I think you're going to see a lot of growth there. I think you'll see people podcasting and NFTing their podcasts. I don't know if it'll work over time. We'll see as it plays out. But like I said, right now, the NBA, let's say LeBron James has an amazing play where he dunks the ball or something. Mm-hmm. They will take that play, they will make a digital copy of it, and they auction it off, and you could buy it for 9,000 or 10,000, sometimes 20,000. Right. And you own that play in digital format. It blew me away. I learned that at the conference. I had no idea that was going on.
Tell me some more amazing stories of these NFTs. The people that you met, they probably have already cracked a way to, monetize this and put their talent at work. Have you heard of any beyond these NBAs and the other ones?
We had a young kid named Max. He creates NFTs for open source games. Mm-hmm. And what the NFT does, Dakshin, if you're playing a game, it will unlock benefits for you. So it's really crazy. Like Altura is the company, and he has a token, but it will unlock actual real benefits as you're gaming, as you're playing. And, the NFT actually collects a commission. I didn't understand it fully, but I was amazed by what he's creating. Mm-hmm. So that's one. We actually had a podcaster who is a photographer. He's also an artist, my good friend, Glenn Sanders. I asked him to come display his photography. Mm-hmm. The people at the conference taught him how to NFT his art. He did it that night. The next day, people were buying NFT copies of his physical art. Oh. And he sold like 5 or 6 copies. And then he told me that when he got home from the conference, someone from the conference shared one of his pictures via Instagram, and some random person bought an NFT copy of that picture.
My goodness.
So that happened last week. Isn't that crazy? That guy was a podcaster who showed up. I said, bring your art. I think it'll be good. And people started buying his NFT copies of his art, like the physical art. Some people bought it, but other people were buying the stuff he created that night because they showed him how to NFT his art.
Right. And that's, what a community can also do and it's an experience from obviously Podfest and the other things that you've been doing. But Is there a community for NFTs which are really active and one can really learn from and go to?
I believe if you go on Facebook or somewhere on the different platforms, most of these people, this is another thing I learned, Dakshin. Most of these people are on 3 platforms that they communicate in a lot: Discord groups, Telegram, and I believe it was WhatsApp. They're really active on those groups more than any of and Slack channels, but mostly Discord, Telegram, and WhatsApp are the 3. And I think it's because the majority of these people work with other people all over the world. And these tools help them communicate internationally. So it's really amazing because this community is global. So it's not unusual to have to say, hey, what part of the region of the world are you in? Okay, let's talk on this, via I got WhatsApp, or I got, meet me on my Discord channel or whatever. So it's going to globalize us as one big globe. Everybody's going to be together. And it's going to take a lot of the power away from the central banking authorities, from what I can tell. There's a term that I want to give your community. We call it financial inclusion. Cryptocurrency is giving everybody a seat at the table. They had a story about a young man in El Salvador who was a fisherman. And he was telling one of the Bitcoin guys, he's like, I don't have a wallet. I can't go to the bank. You have money. You have a bank account. You Americans are so well off. And the guy said, you have a phone, right? The kid said, yeah. And he had him download the crypto wallet and he gave him some Bitcoin. And next thing you know, this kid has an account for the first time ever in his life. He could transact and he could be part of the global economy.
Wow.
But there's no central power telling him what to do or how much his money is worth. He now feels empowered that he could be proud of his place where he lives and that he could build wealth so he could build up his community. It's game changing. The whole thing is game changing.
I'm sure. That's some interesting stories out there. Let's also understand the cons of it, right? How safe is trading, mining, and tell me about the whole concept of cryptojacking. A lot of people also feel it's not safe. What are your thoughts on it? And have you experienced any stories, or you've come across any stories that, kind of highlight the danger or the warnings of cryptojacking?
Yeah, as I was talking to attendees who were coming to the conference, actually, believe it or not, Dakshin, I was not aware of cryptojacking, but we heard so many stories at the conference about people getting cryptojacked. I'm aware of it now. Like, it was not unusual for people to say, oh, when I started this, someone scammed me out of 7 Bitcoin. And, this was years ago when Bitcoin was worth something, but not what it was worth now. And in your head, you're thinking like, oh my God, that's like a lot of money now. Yeah. And you have to be very careful. And what happens is if it sounds too good to be true, even the one guy that started, there's a thing called Bitcash. He owns Bitcoin.com and he sells Bitcash for $500, but people think they're buying Bitcoin, which they're not. So like Bitcoin.com is a scam itself. Like you can't get Bitcoin there because someone else bought that website and they're selling something other than Bitcoin. So you have to do some education. I know this gonna sound weird. Someone did ask this question at the conference. Where do I get educated? And they said Twitter. They said if you look and get involved in the community on Twitter, they'll educate you very quickly. And you could even ask questions. They're very engaged. So be very careful of anyone preaching anything. Make sure to get the wallets that most people are using, the consensus. Now there's a lot of wallets that are publicly traded. And be careful of, if it's too good to be true, just run from it, because this community is a great community, but there's a lot of scammers in it. So if you do a simple social search and you don't see that they have a lot of collaterals or you don't see anything written about them, stay away from them. If you see a company of people doing business with them, they're talking about it, then it's worth, doing business with them.
Let's also talk about the regulations. Not every country believes in the world of cryptocurrencies. The regulations and moderations have been a concern for many countries. In fact, India was also part of this conversation till recent months. What is the global scenario like? And what's going to be the future outcome according to you?
Well, the more corrupt the government system, the better Bitcoin does. So I think the future is bright. Right now, the reason why El Salvador has adopted Bitcoin as its official currency, and they have the dollar already as one of their currency, but now Bitcoin is like their currency, is because when people from other countries sent money to their relatives in El Salvador, and this is a problem many countries have, the people would have to go to Western Union or an office, and they have to go through dirt roads. They have to go find the ATM or the office to get their money. Western Union takes 10%. Let's say we'll talk round numbers. I sent a relative $100. Now they're down to 90, but then the thugs are waiting outside those offices. They take another 20, 30% in bribes. So by the time the person's done, 40% is gone. Bitcoin is a cleaner economy because as long as you have a cell phone, I could send the money directly to your crypto wallet. Very few fees, if anything, are taken out of the equation. So you keep the majority of the money, 99 point whatever percent. And it's an easier vehicle to transact. So what we've seen is in Venezuela, they have their own cryptocurrency. No one trusts it. They do business. We had a lady that escaped Venezuela, and she said, in Venezuela, they're using Bitcoin, Ethereum, and I forgot the third one. But everybody's doing business with those things, even though the government's trying to regulate it. In Colombia, same thing. So you're going to see the people are the ones that have the power. And as they transact, very tough for the governments to stop it from proliferating. And whenever a government system tries to control it, they realize they can't. And the good thing about that is by the time they realize they can't, most people are now using the cryptocurrency. So I don't think you could put the genie back in the bottle. I think there's a philosopher out there that talks about we're going to have virtual nation states being created out of ideology. So imagine people in the world will create their own virtual country virtually. Oh. And that country might be libertarian in beliefs, meaning as long as you're not hurting me, you could do what you want to do, and we could all coexist in the universe. You might have people that are a different philosophy and they create their own virtual country. We believe just like these NFTs and cryptocurrency, they'll be recognized as their own countries. So I think we're going to live in a future that's going to be very dynamic that most people can't even understand right now because we're dealing with the modern day crises of today. But if you look in the future, it seems very bright to me.
Very interesting. While you did touch upon it, let's finally conclude this round of questions with the best trading platforms for cryptos in your experience and why.
Coinbase is the biggest. They're publicly traded. I think their market cap is $80 billion. So, and they're kind of government regulated. Then you have Kraken and Swan. Swan is more on the private side, and it's only Bitcoin only. So if you're looking to do that, I use Swan. Kraken is pretty popular as well. So those are just the big brands. I would just go with the big brands and keep it easy. Dakshin, you asked me something before about cyberjacking and all this, right. Cryptojacking. Right now, we're in the stone ages of cryptocurrency where you still have to have what's called a either hot wallet, virtual wallet, or a cold storage wallet, which is a hard drive where you put your numbers on. You have to realize in the future, Dakshin, once this gets accepted, you'll have crypto in your actual bank account that you have your money in right now. And when that happens, the value of these currencies is going to skyrocket because then everybody could have it and they trust it. Right now, the lack of trust is what makes it so valuable because as everybody else jumps on and banks start certifying it and you could keep it in your, Chase bank account, whatever account you have, the value of these currencies will 10x.
Right. Wow.
That's going to happen in 5 to 10 years from now, I believe. But we'll see. We'll see how fast people adapt. Humans are slow in general to adapt to this kind of stuff. But this next generation, I'm very optimistic because they're very quick to adapt. And I'm really enjoying watching them progress an agenda that people can't control. So it's really fun to watch.
Super. Right. Well, great, Chris. That brings us to the end of our first round. Time to move on to our next round. This is the rapid fire round of questions. Some quick questions coming at you. So are you ready for this?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it then. Okay, then. If Chris had an option to name a cryptocurrency, what would he call it?
CK Coin, my initials.
Okay. How much do I need to start investing on crypto?
So whatever you have, my advice is put it every week and dollar average every week. You could adjust it every week. And I would say Bitcoin, put it in every week, buy and hold, and don't look at it for 5 years and you'll be very wealthy. You'll have a lot more than what you put in.
Okay. I'm not ready for crypto yet. When someone tells you that, what is normally your response?
I would say I would rather be part of crypto where people don't understand it because when everybody then understands it, it's too late.
Right.
And we're about to hit that seesaw. Once that happens, then the value will be 10x what it is now. So the opportunity is so I would say take it upon yourself to understand it if you want to build wealth because with hyperinflation, which is happening in the US, I don't know if it's happening where you're at, our prices are skyrocketing. Our lumber is skyrocketing. So you're losing value by holding on to the dollar. So I would say take it upon yourself to educate yourself, not for your sake, okay? If you're not worried about yourself, for your kids and your community's sake. That's what I would say.
Okay. Teach me 3 words in the world of cryptocurrency that anyone should know.
Okay, one is HODL, HODL. That means hold on for dear life. So when it goes down, everybody is saying HODL, which means hold on for dear life. Plebs, the plebs are considered like the common man. We're all considered plebs. So it's a funny term, but it basically means you're new to crypto, to currency. You're called a pleb, but you're the power of the system. It's you'll see it. It's fueled by plebs. And then cyber hornets. The cyber hornets are the people that defend Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies. So they'll come after people that try and come after Bitcoin. So they have their own defense mechanism. It's called the cyber hornets.
Okay. If you ever met Satoshi Nakamoto, what would you tell him?
Here's the answer. My belief is Satoshi Nakamoto is more than likely has passed away, because I cannot see a human being resisting, because Satoshi has a crypto wallet with 10% of all Bitcoin in it. I can't see a human being resisting being the wealthiest person on the planet and claiming that. That's a very special person. So if I ever saw that person, I would probably break down in tears and thank them for creating a system that allows every human being on this planet to have a seat at the table in financial inclusion.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. To learn new and, be a part of the trend, where does Chris go to learn about cryptocurrencies?
Well, I go to conferences, quite honestly, but I'm a person that likes being out with people, learning about stuff. But if you go online, YouTube would be my place. And I would find the channel with the most subscribers where the person's doing a good job educating people. And I would start learning. Mark Moss is a great podcaster, YouTuber too. MarkMoss, Mark Moss. I would recommend his channel.
Okay. And that also brings me to, who are the 3 blockchain experts you recommend people to follow?
So my people are heavy in, so Mark Moss would be one. I think Robert Breedlove is great. He's a Bitcoin philosopher. Michael Saylor is actually my favorite. Michael Saylor, Sayler.
Okay. And finally, when and where is the next blockchain and Bitcoin summit that you're planning to host?
We're planning to have it in November, and we're planning to add a Lightning conference, which is the processor off of Bitcoin, a Bitcoin Lightning conference as well to it. We're hoping November, and Dakshin, it's going to be added on to PodFest and VidFest. So it will be the 3rd leg of our conference. So we believe for our ecosystem as content creators to really be robust, we must add this 3rd leg of it. So where, we don't know yet. We're still negotiating. But what happened with COVID, because Florida was the state that opened first, all our hotels are booked from all over the place. People are booking our hotels. So I have to find space. So I'm in the process of that right now.
Okay, super. Great. Well done there, Chris. That concludes our second round of questions as well. And now it's time to move into the last segment of the show. And this question is from Kedar Puri. In fact, he has 2 questions. And the first one says, I've been reading a lot about blockchain and creating your own cryptocurrency. Is starting your own cryptocurrency worth it? And what are the best platforms according to you? And what are the best ways to make your cryptocurrency legal? And the second question, of course, is a few brands have started accepting cryptocurrencies. And with the increasing trend of digital currencies coming into play, do you think corporates can prepare themselves to pay their employees with cryptocurrencies? And how does this process work?
Let's start with both. The first one, the cryptocurrency question. I am not qualified to give you advice on that, but when you're creating your own currency, you could also create your own tokens. And tokens are based off of existing cryptocurrencies. So what I would say is on that is I would find a YouTube channel to educate you on how to do that, because you can create a cryptocurrency, but you want to make sure there's an underlying value, that you're not just creating it for the sake of wealth creation, because people aren't going to take very kindly to that long term. The second question, as far as companies accepting digital currency, that's already happening in the US. We actually have the city of Miami is paying their employees, if they'd like, in Bitcoin. So that's going to be adopted. So here's how Bitcoin is going to get adopted into the system. El Salvador just made Bitcoin their sovereign currency, okay? You have to realize McDonald's and Burger King, those places probably have offices in El Salvador. Well, the people are going to have to buy stuff with their Bitcoin, and those companies are going to have to accept it. As these countries start accepting Bitcoin, these companies have to accept Bitcoin to do business. Well, that's going to flow into their home office, and they're going to, by default, they're going to have to hold on to Bitcoin because that's how people are going to pay them. So the users are going to push that drive. That's the craziest part. The users are going to push the drive into corporate adoption. Even though some corporate are doing it, they're going to be forced into it one way or another. So you're going to see corporate adoption really increase over the next 2 to 5 years.
Right. Nice. Okay. Fantastic. With that, Chris, we come to the end of today's show. Thank you so much. This has been a really productive learning about the world of blockchain. I really had a great time hosting you. I hope you had your good share of time too.
It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you and your audience. I hope I shed some light on these things, but we're in the infancy. If you're listening to this, we're in the infancy of one of the greatest transformations and shifts of wealth that will ever exist in any of our lifetimes, in humankind, actually. So research this, learn about it, become experts. And then if you ever see me, let me know that, what you learned from this and how you were able to, empower yourselves and your families from it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris, and wish you and all your events and your gigs all the very best.
To you as well.
Thank you. So which currencies have you invested in? What are your thoughts about cryptocurrency? Tell us this, and also if you have any questions on the same about today's episode, you can write to thedeliberate.talks@gmail.com or connect with me on the social media channels and the audio platforms. Join in next Monday for another episode with another expert, and until then, please take care of yourself and don't forget to inspire and be inspired.